A vegan activist is now a convicted criminal. Let's talk about the person, the crime, and some highly important perspective. Then I'll give my prediction about the sentencing and my opinion on this absolutely wild story. Now, it's possible that I'm about to piss off both non-vegans and vegans alike, but that is not the goal. The goal is to get everybody thinking deeper, whether you agree or disagree with me. If something requires my objectivity, I will be objective. And if something allows for subjectivity, then I'll be as reasonable as possible. You'll see. At the end of the day, I don't care which team you're on, all are welcome here. But I just ask that you try to keep an open mind. All right, let's rock. Part 1. The person. Her name is Zoe Rosenberg, and she's a longtime vegan activist based out of California. She's 23 years old at the time of this video, but has been defending animals since she was 11 years old when she founded the Happy Hen Animal Sanctuary, which has reportedly saved over 1,000 lives. She has around 244,000 followers across all of her socials, the highest being 196,000 on Instagram. On her Facebook, she states that she's an organizer at DXE, or Direct Action Everywhere, who say that they are a global grassroots network of animal rights activists. She's apparently been recognized as Youth Activist of the Year by National Animal Rights Conference and was apparently awarded the Paul McCartney Veg Advocate Award. And guess what? She's been in trouble before. Here are some notable arrests that she's had over the years. In 2016, at age 14, she was arrested at an LA Dodgers game where she was protesting the alleged mistreatment of animals by the meat supplier that the stadium uses for their hot dogs. In 2018, at age 15, she was arrested at a slaughterhouse affiliated with the California Polytechnic State University, where she was protesting the upcoming slaughter of a pig for one of their classes. In 2022, at age 19, she was arrested at an NBA playoff game where she was protesting an animal mass killing method known as ventilation shutdown plus. Want to hear all about it? Sure you do. It involves closing building airways so animals die of suffocation or heat stroke. Humane! Quite an arrest history there. My girl definitely stands up for what she believes in. Now, with all that said, let's take a look at her most recent legal issue, which is the biggest one by far. Part 2. The crime. These are the objective details of the situation as far as my research turned up. In 2023, she took 4 chickens from Petaluma Poultry, a Purdue-owned plant out in California. Over the course of a 7-week trial in Sonoma County Superior Court, a jury found her guilty of 4 different charges, 1 felony count of conspiracy, and 3 misdemeanors, which were 2 counts of trespassing and 1 count of tampering with a vehicle. Some other important details about the trial are as follows. Point 1. Zoe allegedly visited Petaluma Poultry 4 times without authorization. Point number 2, Zoe allegedly attached GPS tracking devices to 12 different farm delivery vehicles. Point number 3, Zoe claimed to have evidence of criminal animal cruelty at the plant, but she says that law enforcement repeatedly ignored her, so that's why she took matters into her own hands. Point number 4, allegedly the court decided not to allow a necessity defense, which I'll explain in just a moment, and limited Zoe's evidence of animal cruelty. Sidebar, Google defines necessity defense as a legal defense that argues a defendant committed a crime to prevent greater harm. To use this defense, the defendants must admit to the illegal act, but prove that it was necessary and reasonable under the circumstances, such as a genuine immediate threat of serious injury and that no other legal alternatives were available. Point number 5, Zoe is showing disappointment at this conviction, but no regret. I can't find the original source of the quote, but multiple news outlets are reporting that she said the following after the conviction. "I will not apologize for taking sick, neglected animals to get medical care. When we see cruelty and violence, we can choose to ignore it or to intervene and try to make the world a better place. I chose to intervene, and because I did, Poppy, Ivy, Aster, and Azalea are alive today. For that, I will never be sorry." On her Instagram, she said the following: "Trial didn't go as we hoped. There was evidence of animal cruelty hidden from the jury, most notably documents proving birds were being boiled alive and condemned for other reasons related to poor welfare. They were also not allowed to see the photos or videos of the conditions at any of Petaluma Poultry's factory farms or even hear about most of it. I believe if the jury could have seen the full picture, this all may have ended differently. We will all keep moving forward, speaking up for the animals in every way that we can. No arrest, conviction, or sentence will ever stop a movement driven by compassion and care." Part 3. The perspective. So going forward, there will be objective points and subjective points. Points in favor of Zoe and points against. Some of the points are from comments I've read in other videos and social media posts about this situation, and most of the points are directly from right here in my brain. But it's all important to consider. Just keep an open mind. All right. Here we go. Point number 1, comparison. Zoe faces up to 5 years in prison. Here are some other things that someone can do to get 5 years in prison, depending on the state. Drug trafficking, manufacturing, or possession with the intent to distribute things like meth or heroin, certain sexual crimes, certain types of kidnapping, criminal use of a firearm or electric defensive weapon, burglary with explosive, deadly weapon, or dangerous instrument. Oh my God. Contaminating public water or food for terrorism. That one's crazy. And she's facing more time than many white-collar criminals will ever face for any of their crimes. Now, objectively, do we really think that her crimes reach the level of any of those things? Point number 2, actual crimes, ? Did Zoe commit actual crimes here? Yes. According to a jury of her peers, yes, she did. Point number 3, evidence omitted. Was Zoe justified in committing these crimes? Well, it's hard for me to say, so I won't. But again, she thinks that she was justified. The Petaluma Poultry website tries to make the case that they are consciously considering the animals in their plant. Zoe didn't agree, and we're told that her evidence of criminal animal cruelty was not even permitted in court, which it probably should have been, right? Because that's why she committed these crimes in the first place. The police didn't want to help, so she did it herself. Show the jury everything. Point 4, laws and morals. Just because something is law does not mean that it's morally correct. Generally, morals help inform laws, but there have been plenty of laws that are just straight up immoral in the past, and people have had to fight to change them. Maybe some laws in this case need to be looked at, like what constitutes animal cruelty, what isn't allowed when it comes to the treatment of animals, and how can right to rescue laws be expanded or clarified, bringing me to my next point. Point 5, the right to rescue. A summary of animal right to rescue laws say that, quote, these laws empower and protect citizens who break into a vehicle to save an animal in imminent danger from conditions such as extreme heat. These laws generally apply only to pets in vehicles and usually explicitly exclude farmed animals. So of course we're favoring dogs trapped in hot cars here, which, I mean, that shouldn't be happening either, but what about the animals that are trapped in CAFOs? I think that these laws could probably reasonably be expanded to any animal that is being abused, including the ones that are stuck inside of the animal agriculture system. I don't think that's unfair to want, but it would mean that animal agriculture as a whole would basically just have to grind to a screeching halt, which, I mean, okay, sounds good to me. Point number 6, silly math. I know it's deeper than this, don't come at me, but she could get 5 years in jail for rescuing 4 sick chickens. That's 1.25 years per chicken. Now I understand that it's more nuanced than that. Okay, fine, that's true. But I'm just saying, if she gets 5 years for this, doesn't that feel a little bit harsh? Hitting the like button is an incredibly helpful way to spread the vegan message, and it could literally help save innocent lives. So if you don't mind, that would be awesome. All right, let's dive back in. Point number 7, stealing versus killing. So which is worse, stealing or killing? Zoe stole 4 chickens and might get 5 years in jail for it. But Purdue was planning to kill those same chickens and they would get 0 years. Right. Well, why is that? Is it because they own them? Isn't it still wrong to kill? Or is it different because Purdue owns those chickens? Would it be okay if your neighbor wanted to kill their dog for food because they owned the dog? Or would they still have to deal with police knocking at the door saying, you guys abused and killed a dog when you didn't need to do that so you could eat? That's a crime. Those neighbors would be violating animal cruelty laws. But they should be okay because it's their dog to kill, right? Most people would say, fuck no, that neighbor sucks. Point number 8, legal property. Animals are legally considered property in the US. So does that mean that she technically stole those chickens? Yes, objectively, she did steal those chickens, but they were innocent beings in need of some rescue, so did she also rescue those chickens? Yes, she did. She stole and she rescued. Side point, what do we call a living being who is considered property, who is mistreated, kept in poor conditions, and doesn't want to live at the will of someone more powerful than them who they can't rise up against? We call that a slave. And all food animals are slaves. Point number 9. More rights. Now, is it cruel to kill something that doesn't want to die? Yes. Yes, it is. Go watch Earthlings or any slaughterhouse video for that matter and tell me that what you're watching is somehow not cruel. Now, sure, there are faster and slower ways to kill animals, and I think that we would all widely agree that the slower ways are more cruel, but it's all cruel if the animal doesn't want to die, which is all animals. Unless you're one of those spiders that gets eaten by the female in order to reproduce, so maybe in that case they want to die, but I mean, we're not farming that spider for us to eat. If we were, it would be cruel to kill them. Point 10, what if it were puppies? If Zoe saw some sick puppies in a slaughterhouse who were destined for someone's dinner plate, and she stole them and got them medical attention, same as with the chickens, then she would be hailed as a hero by everyone. This analogy shouldn't even be necessary, but if you change the animal, you change the emotion. That's just how we're wired in the Western world. We care about dogs and cats, but almost every other animal is largely considered morally worthless, which is bullshit. Point 11. Clout. I've seen comments like, Zoe did this just for the content, for the clicks, for the attention. These comments are from people that are completely missing her point. She is not looking for attention for herself. She's trying to bring attention to the chickens, my guy, and the organization's mistreating them, not herself. The very fact that the word got to these people in the first place is exactly her point. It's not for her ego. It's to show chicken suffering and garner sympathy for chickens and affect change for chickens, not to boost her own ego. If her goal was boosting her own ego, then there are plenty of better and safer ways for her to do that for herself. Point 12. Taxpayer money. Here's a quote from Zoe's attorney, Chris Caraway. Quote, Sonoma County spent over 6 weeks and hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars to protect a multi-billion-dollar corporation from the rescue of 4 chickens worth less than $25. Just something to think about. Point 13, healthcare cost. The 4 chickens were worth about $24 total, but they were apparently sick or unhealthy, which Petaluma says that they try to help out with medical attention if that ever becomes the case. Here's a direct quote from their website. Quote, as part of our commitment to animal welfare, we will not withhold any medically appropriate treatment. So if that's true and they stick with their word, then they would have had to treat these animals, costing them well over $24 to do so. We all know what American vet care is like. It's expensive. So was Zoe saving Petaluma Poultry some money by taking these chickens and giving them the medical attention they need on her dime? Maybe. Point 14. Branding. Petaluma Poultry brands some of their products as Rocky the original free-range chicken and Rosie the original organic chicken. They say that they're sustainable on their logo, and they have a whole FAQ section on their website that offers clarity on how they define words like natural, free-range, and organic, as well as information about what happens if a chicken gets sick, why they feed the chickens a vegetarian diet, and the advantages of not using antibiotics. While this seems better than what you might get from other poultry plants, it doesn't change the fact that none of these things justify the killing of innocent animals that don't want to die. Is Petaluma slightly better than the worst farms out there? Possibly. Still doesn't make them good. They're still responsible for ungodly amounts of suffering and death that doesn't need to happen. No matter what you call them, call it Rocky, call it Rosie, tell us all about how great they are and how well you treat them, that chicken still doesn't want to die, and they're still immoral for killing them. Point 15. Corporate cash. These corporations have tons and tons of money, super deep pockets, which we all know can help when it comes to legal issues, right? Now, Zoe does not have the same resources to defend herself. Petaluma, on the other hand, is owned by Purdue, so they have literal billions. Just throw it at the case to make the vegans go away. No problem, bro, no problem. Point 16, trading places. Now, what if you were that chicken? You'd be really happy that somebody came to your aid. Seriously, give that some thought for a second. Instead of being born into your body, you were born into the body of a chicken. You have no English-speaking capabilities, so you can't tell everybody there that it's messed up that you're being tortured and that you are hurting and that you don't want to die and that you're afraid. So somebody swoops in, steals you, and brings you out to go get some medical attention, and now you get to live on a farm for the rest of your life, right? That seems pretty nice. If you were that chicken, you would really appreciate that. Or you could have the same luck as the vast majority of chickens and not get rescued and have to live in a CAFO and then go to a slaughterhouse and be boiled alive, which is far more likely, but I mean, again, you'd really appreciate the rescue if she came to your rescue. Point 17, above the law. Here's a quote from the Sonoma County District Attorney Carla Rodriguez from after the trial. Quote, this verdict affirms that no one is above the law. While we respect everyone's right to free expression, it is unlawful to trespass, disrupt legitimate businesses, and endanger workers and animals in pursuit of a political or social agenda. Well, wait a minute there. Let's compress that quote. It is unlawful to ... endanger ... animals in pursuit of a political or social agenda. Whoa, wait a second. Zoe was endangering the chickens by removing them? Weren't the ones who were actually endangering the chickens the corporation who intended to murder them? Or is it somehow legal to endanger animals because that's the company's business model and it's how they make money? Also, the DA said that no one is above the law, right? Well, then what about investigating Petaluma Poultry to see if they're breaking any laws concerning animal welfare? Zoe reported problems to law enforcement, but apparently they didn't intervene. So if Petaluma isn't being investigated, then isn't Petaluma kind of above the law in this case? Kind of smells that way. Point 18, trespassing and tracking. This case seems to be more about the fact that the business feels intimidated by Zoe's actions, trespassing and putting GPS devices on their vehicles, rather than the moral implications of the animal cruelty that Zoe alleges that they were perpetrating. Here's proof of this in a quote from Purdue's chief HR officer, Julie Cadigan. Quote, "Purdue Farms fully supports the right to free speech and peaceful protest. However, there is a clear line between lawful advocacy and repeated unlawful intimidation tactics. Everyone deserves to feel safe in their own home without fear of harassment or disruption. Today, we took steps to protect those values for our associates, their families, and our community." One more quote from her. Quote, "While we open welcome and honest discussion about the welfare of animals, we strongly oppose the extreme tactics used by DXE. These are not the actions of an organization seeking constructive dialogue." I'm sorry, what was that? You support open and honest discussion about the welfare of animals? Sure you do. If you're so open, let's have a discussion. Point 19, DXE's proximity. Direct Action Everywhere, the organization that Zoe works with, is located in Berkeley, California, a mere 40 miles away from Petaluma Poultry, and that whole county is very agricultural. Now, DXE's proximity to this area matters in this case because it means that nearby businesses have a higher likelihood of being targeted by DXE protesters than those who are farther away. If you're close, your problems are probably going to be higher. If you're farther away, probably not as much. Businesses just don't want to keep dealing with DXE, so that's a big part of this case for sure. My prediction. So what do I think happens when Zoe gets sentenced? Well, unfortunately, I think they're going to come swinging and they're going to hit her pretty hard. She'll probably get a sentence that's heavier than what feels reasonable to most people. And I think that's because the judge is going to be trying to send a message to other activists and protesters to try to make an example out of her, to tell all the other protesters, look at what happened to her. This could happen to you if you continue with your protesting and activism. It's likely that the judge's only focus is going to be on making local farmers feel safer and trying to prevent situations like this one in the future. The judge will probably mention things like trespassing and harassment and maybe even, quote, terrorism, but probably nothing about animal cruelty or the heinous atrocities committed against animals in these hellholes on a daily basis. I think all of that adds up to really bad things for Zoe. Now, with that said, check this out. This is from the San Francisco Chronicle via MSN.com. Quote, "Her defense team is expected to appeal her conviction. If the appellate court reverses the decision and rules in favor of Rosenberg, it will set a legal precedent that open rescues are permissible, something that a not guilty verdict on Wednesday would not have achieved." Now, how likely is that? Who knows? I guess we're gonna find out. Now, I understand that my outlook is a bit grim, but think about it. Multi-billion-dollar company Purdue got stung by a bee, and they're sending a fighter jet after it because they're sick and tired of problems that protesters create for them. So, will the punishment fit the crime? I don't think so. I think you see why. It already seems too severe, and sentencing hasn't even happened yet. This guy's opinion. In my view, vegans are better off not stealing or rescuing chickens like this because I believe that more can be accomplished on the outside of a jail cell, right? Think about it. If she gets 5 years in prison, is she really going to be able to speak all that much to her cause while she's in there? Probably not. I'm someone who believes that my words are my strongest weapon. And I don't want to hinder any chance I have of those words being effective. I want my words to hit. I want them to affect change at a personal level. I want to be someone who communicates something to someone that makes them change their mind or makes them go and watch the Earthlings documentary, and therefore they have this major change take place in their life because I was able to speak to something in them, because I'm smart and they're smart and they heard me. And because of my words, they made change that matters. I like not being in jail because I get to stay speaking up about what I believe, and that's how I best affect change. Now, words are super important to me, but Zoe herself wouldn't even agree with me there, and that's okay. That's her style. My style is words, her style is action. As a matter of fact, here's proof. Her Instagram bio says, "Deeds, not words." Now that's what works for her, and it's how she has to live her own life because anything else for her would be inauthentic. And I'm not faulting her for that. That's a wonderful sentiment to have. It's just that actions do have consequences sometimes, and unfortunately, that's what she's going through right now. If Zoe had to make the very unfortunate decision to just let those chickens die and simply tell their story instead and spend the next 5 years outside of a jail cell and championing veganism as a free woman, then that may have been more valuable than saving these 4 chickens' lives. But I could be wrong about that. Here's proof. If you're not a vegan and you're here watching this video thinking, this situation does feel a little harsh for Zoe, then one could argue that her conviction is already a good thing because it brought you here and it nestled you deeper into understanding the vegan argument. That was only possible because of her actions. Now you can jump into all kinds of multiverses with a situation like this, right? She gets 5 years in prison, but that strengthens her resolve, so she'll come back stronger than before. Maybe it helps her ascend to the vegan Mount Olympus and she's hailed as a hero and a role model that spearheaded the beautiful change that the future needs. Or she gets 5 years in prison and we don't hear a peep out of her the entire time and she's helpless to argue for her cause, which sucks. Or she gets 5 years in prison and that brings in a ton of attention about how ridiculous the situation is, and then she becomes a sympathetic character and therefore spreading her message even farther, which softens people's hearts toward tortured animals who are doomed to become human food. That's a possible outcome too. And positive things are already kind of happening. On her Instagram, she said the following, quote, "Despite this not being the outcome that we hoped for, this verdict is still leading to international attention on Petaluma Poultry's crimes against animals. In less than 24 hours, it has been covered by the New York Times, The Guardian, and a number of other outlets. No arrest, conviction, or sentence will ever stop a movement that is driven by compassion and care." And motherfucker, she's right. See, her story is spreading around already. And they say all press is good press, so maybe her conviction is a positive thing after all, which I do think it can be. I'm not against her in this situation. I'm just saying that the way she handled it was not the way maybe that I would have handled it. I just hope that it gets people thinking critically, which is the purpose of this video. Also, my YouTube channel is yet another vehicle that's spreading her story, which wouldn't be happening if she didn't do what she did. So maybe, again, this video is part of the positive outcome from what feels like a harsh situation. Now, it's important to say that the reason I went vegetarian in the first place was because of the Earthlings documentary, and I went vegan sometime after that. But I'm sure that some people had to break the law by filming inside of those factory farms and slaughterhouses to get that footage to me, which I never would have seen unless they broke the law. And that changed my life overnight. The change in me would not have been possible without the criminals that got the footage. So isn't it possible that Zoe's just the next generation of that? She's getting footage and getting stories for the next Earthlings. I wish there didn't have to be another one of them in the future, but we all know how long this is going to take. It's going to take more. But maybe Zoe is contributing to that. She's breaking the law to save lives and to tell a story. Whether you like it or not, that's an effective way to make change, even if the perpetrator does some time for it. Now, to be clear, I never support intimidation, harassment, terrorism, or violence against any beings, humans or otherwise, not against farmers, activists, chickens, dogs, Democrats, Republicans, Christians, atheists, Muslims, Jews, or anyone ever really. We don't commit violence. That's just part of my belief. The only exception to that rule is if someone is currently violent towards an innocent being or will imminently commit violence towards an innocent being. Now, I'm not saying Zoe was violent at all. I don't think she was, but I don't know enough about the case to say if she committed anything like intimidation or harassment or terrorism. But if she did any of those things are things that I am definitely against. And I don't think that vegans should ever use any of those tactics to push their agenda forward at all. I think the most effective way that we can do things is with our words, as I said. Now, that's just how I see things. I'm not saying everybody sees things that way. I'm just giving you my stance. Because again, if I was one of those chickens, I'd be real happy that Zoe was there. It's just that simple. Now, please hear me. I'm not saying that what Zoe did was right or wrong, but I am saying that it was very brave and probably slightly miscalculated, and it doesn't fit into my risk profile at all, but it does fit into hers. Should she have done it? I don't think so, because she's probably more useful on the outside of a jail cell, like I said, but I'm not God. I can't know how this affects the timeline in the grand scheme of things. Maybe it turns out much better than I think, which I hope it does. Sentencing. She will be sentenced on December 3rd, 2025 at 1:30 p.m., so stop by my channel shortly thereafter for the news and my opinion of it. Also, maybe subscribe if you're down to gain a new vegan friend. Whether you're vegan or not, if you like the vibes, cool, stick around. Thanks. Now let me just drive home the most important point in this video, all right? No matter which team you're on, I don't care if you're a vegan or a vegetarian or a non-vegan or a carnist or whatever the case may be, I don't care. I am just simply trying to open your mind and show you some things that are worth thinking about when we consider this situation. I'm trying to help people understand the vegan position, and that vegans aren't these crazy militant freaks with these wacky agendas, but that we just care about the innocent beings in the world, and that we want this planet to be a better place with less torture and less death in general. That's all. I'm just a messenger, and my goal is to make peace. Remember, do something that makes the world a better place this week. People need you. All right, watch this awesome video next. Check out the merch link down below, and I will see you next time. All right, here's a blank check for the lawsuit to make those damn vegans go away. All right, here you go. Get them out of here.